Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics. I am Kayode Okikiolu. On the news this hour, the federal government may consider ratifying the draft treaty for the promotion of African trade as the Presidential Committee on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement recommends that Nigeria signs the agreement, but with measures in place to ensure maximum benefit. And after a long spell on the drawing board, the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, promises to reactivate the draft document of a master plan for the development of the Niger Delta region. And CISLAC releases another indicting report on the role of the Nigerian military during the 2019 general elections. We begin this noon bulletin with the report by the Presidential Committee on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which has recommended that Nigeria signs the agreement. But then there's a condition, and it says there must be measures in place to ensure maximum benefit. The committee, set up in October 2018, yesterday submitted its report to President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja. The president also presided over the swearing-in ceremony of the chairman and members of the board of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra has the rest of the story.
President Muhammadu Buhari gets the report of the Impact and Readiness Assessment. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, just back from duty tour to the United States, and other government officials watch with keen interest. It took the committee 19 weeks of wide and extensive consultation to reach a conclusion.
The committee comprised...
It noted several challenges, but believed that with careful planning, Nigeria will benefit from joining the AFCFTA.
We identified sectors that can act as arrowheads for Nigeria's expansion into Africa, while efforts are intensified to attract private sector investments to the productive sectors. Your Excellency, our report shows that on the balance, Nigeria should consider joining the AFCFTA.
It has been over a year now.
President Buhari promised to consider the report, reminding all what was at stake.
Goods and services made locally with dominant African content in terms of raw materials and value addition. If we allow unbridled imports to continue, it will dominate our trade. The implication of this is that coastal importing nations will prosper while landlocked nations will continue to suffer and depend on aid.
These are some of the reasons why the president set up the committee in 2018 and granted it additional 7 weeks to carry out an independent assessment. President Buhari also presided over the swearing-in of chairmen and members of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. To the new chairman and 29 other members, he gave a charge.
The expectation of government that he will rapidly and systematically set to work to address all areas of your mandates in a business-like manner.
Thank you very much.
Elias Mbam is the new chairman. He takes over at a time there are calls from some quarters for the review of the remunerations of members of the National Assembly.
I don't want to go into reduce or increase, but part of our responsibility and mandate is to determine revenue, to remuneration appropriate to public office holders.
The board has a 4-year tenure to carry out its assignment, including seeking new ways of revenue generation. From the presidential villa, Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
Well, let's now examine the potential implications of the Nigerian government signing the Africa Free Trade Agreement or otherwise. We're being joined by a policy analyst from Connect Development, Ani Agu, to help us make a sense of this plan. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, 3 months after African Union heads of state have adopted the phase 1 of this agreement, we're still considering it carefully, which makes sense, honestly, because we shouldn't jump into it head on. But then the question is, if eventually we choose not to follow through with this agreement, what is our chance of survival amongst African countries that we're not in agreement with?
Thank you so much for the question. One thing is basic and fundamental in the global space is that no nation can afford to be left behind. So Nigeria, as a sovereign country, of course, reserves the right to determine which agreement they sign up to or which one they decline. But as it affects the continental free trade zone, Nigeria, at this point in our nationhood, Nigeria cannot afford to alienate itself from the global space. It is good that the president is carefully considering our chances, our options, where we have comparative advantage, the possible implications on the SMEs and all that. Very fantastic. But on the overall, Nigeria must carefully be strategic in integrating herself in the Community of Nations. There is nothing really bad in the trade zone, in the trade agreement. Where we have issues or where we have concerns to address is the role we are playing. What role are we playing? How focal, how participatory are we in the whole template and implementation? So Nigeria and her economic team must devise ways that we guarantee Nigeria a fair play in the whole arrangement. Nothing is fundamentally bad with it.
All right.
It's a global world. We must be careful to make sure that we don't lose fortunes.
Okay, now you mentioned Nigeria's role in this agreement. Now the question also is, eventually, if we choose to say, you know what, let's be a part of this, but let's try to, negotiate. Do you think Nigeria has enough influence to negotiate a better role, better deal from this? I mean, people say we're the largest economy in Africa. So do we have enough influence?
Just like you rightly mentioned, we are the biggest economy in the continent. We have the population, we have the market, and of course we have the political influence. So the question, if we lack the capacity, does not arise. We are suitably qualified. It is a function of identifying the key players, the super negotiators and the economic drivers. I mean the personnel, the key actors who will interface with other national and other players in the whole arrangement to make sure that we make a better deal. Of course, as this conversation is going on, as we are negotiating with the international community, we need to also put our home policies in order, begin to stimulate the manufacturing industries, the SMEs, so that the key thing, because technically our fear is that we are not producing much. So if you have enough manufacturing capacity and we are producing goods and services, of course there wouldn't be fears because we have the markets to distribute, or as it were, I don't want to use the word dump, but to share in our to our neighbors. So as we are negotiating and looking at the prospects of the trade, the continental trade free trade agreement, we need to also strengthen the capacity of our local industries to produce and to compete with the rest of the world. It's about competition. It's a free market affair. But of course, government must play that critical role of regulation and macroeconomic stability. So we will not lose. We stand so much to gain if we put our acts together.
Okay, now another major issue that came out is the fact that if we're not careful, we'll keep relying on imports as a country instead of actually manufacturing and exporting. Now the question is this: if we say let us develop our manufacturing sector, I mean the world does not wait for anyone, let's be honest. So do you think we have enough luxury of time to say let's first develop our manufacturing sector and then catch up with the world?
We have the manpower. We have also very heavy foreign direct investment flowing into the country. And we have the population and the manpower. Most of these neighboring countries, African countries, Nigerians are playing active role in their economies. So with the right national policies, the state must not relegate its role. In a development state, it has a critical role to play. So with the right political economic conditions, We have the manpower. We can attract our fantastic diaspora community to come with their expertise and stimulate and partner with existing industries to make them competitive and against our competitors. So we have what it takes. One thing there is the political will. People often talk about the political will. The political will is focal. The government must play that role. We must mobilize our resources, both financially and the human resources. We have what it takes. We have the land mass, we have the waterways, we have the population. Our GDP is robust, we also have a very cordial relationship with the international community. So with the right political environment, with the right business environment, we have what it takes to play. Of course, we maintain the biggest economy in Africa. So there's nothing to fear about. I encourage the federal government to go on and carefully consider all the angles to this policy, and then, of course, do the needful. We are optimistic. The business community is people.
All right.
The policy environment is also hopeful.
All right. Just before I let you go, you have advised the federal government to follow through with this agreement and, enjoy the benefits. So if you can break it down for us, what are some of the benefits Nigeria stands to gain? Let's try to name them, one by one.
Of course, this market is about production. It's about economics. And one key thing in economics is the market. How are you going to, if you must grow your economy, you must produce. And if you produce, you must sell. So the world is a global village. It's a globalized community. So it's about integrating, and you come on board with areas you have comparative advantage. We are doing so well. Even we're exporting even our manpower in terms of education. We have the finest of bread who are servicing other nationals. So in clear terms, what Nigeria stands to gain is to export our manpower. When we export our manpower and other services, other products, then we earn foreign exchange. When we earn foreign exchange, of course, and the economy maintain a steady growth rate, we have enough resources to fund social development and fund infrastructure. So first of all, we must grow the economy. The economy must grow. It is the process from economic growth that you fly back or redistribute into development, doing social welfare, social development, and doing the critical infrastructure, the basic infrastructure we are so in need of. So we have what it takes to add to our GDP growth, our GDP size, and of course to market our already, of course, our banks and all that, they're already doing well. So it's about economic growth. But of course, as we know, it's competitive, it's a rat race. If we do not get our acts well and play very well, negotiate very well, and compete, it's about competition. If we don't compete very well, other markets, our neighbors there, South Africa, the second biggest economy, they're also doing so well to compete or even overtake. So it's about growing the economy, and this is an opportunity for Nigeria to play with our neighbors and the world, grow our economy, and foreign exchange, and use it to diversify and sponsor social.
Mr. Aniagu, would like to thank you so much for your thoughts and your perspective on this issue of Africa free trade agreements. We've been speaking with Mr. Aniagu, a policy analyst. Moving on now, the acting managing director and chief executive officer of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Professor Nelson Brambefa, has promised to revisit and reactivate the Niger Delta Development Master Plan with a view to rebuilding partnerships for Sustainable Development Forum. Speaking when he paid a courtesy call on the Cross River State Governor, Professor Ben Ayade, Brambefa commended Ayade for the state's agricultural revolution, especially in the rice value chain. According to him, the initiative will eradicate hunger amongst the ever-increasing population of the country, as well as open frontiers for job creation. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll discuss CISLAC's recommendation and report on the 2019 elections, especially as it touches the role of security agencies in that polls. Join us again.